Welcome to the Paint Tutorials. Although it's a really basic program, a lot of people are not very sure how to use it, so I'm going to go through the basics, how to resize things, rotate them, all the different tools, brushes, shapes, all that kind of stuff. And I'm also going to teach you how to find images online, make sure they're the right resolution, how I can save them, change their formats, that kind of thing. Okay, so let's get started. First thing you'll notice with Paint is that it has no layering system like in Photoshop. So if I drew on this area and then drew over it, whatever I drew last would overwrite whatever I drew at the start. Okay, we can resize it by using these little squares here, here, and here. That'll manually resize the height, width, and the corner will do both at once. Okay, and you'll notice down here that tells you your exact resolution via pixels. You can also specify it manually in this resize option. So if you want, you can shrink it down to 50% of the size, and you'll notice that because this maintain aspect ratio has been ticked, it'll also resize it vertically 50% of the size. If I press OK, it's exactly 50% smaller. Now don't confuse this with the zoom down here. I often see this mistake. Someone thinks, oh yeah, there you go, I've resized it to half size, but no, you've only changed the zoom. Likewise, you can make it twice as big. So just remember what your zoom is on when you go to resize. Now just say you want to make a specific size, like pixel perfect size, so that it fits maybe a web page or a desktop desktop background or something. Okay, for example, you can go into your computer's resolution settings and have a look at what your resolution is on. It's on 1366 by 768. So I could go back to Paint, resize it, go to pixels, uncheck this box. Go 1366 by 768. Okay, and now I've made, and you can't really see it because it's a little bit bigger than my recording window, but it is exactly the same size as my desktop background. So I could make a desktop background that fits perfectly. Okay, I'm just going to resize that back down to smaller so you can see it all. So let's do something a little bit more practical. I'm going to go on the internet, grab myself an image, and you'll notice that when you're searching up images, sometimes they look a little bit grainy. You can get around that by clicking the View Image button on the side here. And you'll notice a few things. We've got the resolution size here of this image. So now that we all know what resolution is in Paint, that makes more sense. Click on View Image to get a better quality version. Here we go, this guy doing something very dangerous, and I don't recommend to anybody. But the first thing you do is right click it if you want to keep it, and say Save Picture As. I see a lot of people pressing copy and then pasting it to where they want. I would generally recommend saving the picture, especially if you're copying it to like Word or a web page or something like that, because if this link changes, that copy won't work properly sometimes. Okay, so let's just right click, say Save Picture As. So we're creating our own version of it, and I'm just going to save it to the desktop, to my U7IT folder, sure, and I'm just going to call it Endo Bike. And you notice it's a JPEG. I could save it as a bitmap. That will make the quality a little bit better, but the file size is much larger. So I'm going to stick with JPEG. Okay, and if I go back to Paint, I could open it like so from U7IT, and there's my Endo picture, and I've opened it up. Okay, you'll notice it's huge in terms of its actual resolution, and maybe I want to make it a little picture for my website or something like that, or for my project. Okay, I could do this and resize it. There, that looks nice, but its actual size is still too big, so I'm going to have to use the resize option, and I'm going to make this maybe 40% of its original size. Okay, now if I zoom it back up to 100, that's a little bit better. It's not taking up, more than a whole screen. Okay, so that's a pretty good size. I might also decide, you know what, I don't like all this extra space over here, so I'll just drag that in a bit, and I can crop it. Alternatively, I can use my selection tool and just grab what I want. So maybe I'll just get this picture here, and if I press crop, it gets rid of everything except for what I just chose. So you can resize the image and you can also crop it. Okay, now I'm happy with that, and I'll go File, Save As, and then I am given these options. A PNG file is generally a higher quality photo, but it uses a little bit more size. Okay, so at the moment you can see down here the size is 593 KB, which is approximately half of 1 megabyte. If I save it as a PNG, let's see how big it goes. I'm going to call it endobike.png, save, and it's approximately the same size, so not so bad. Okay, likewise, if I save it again as a JPEG, let's have a look at the different size. Endobike, we'll call it 2, just so we can see the difference. Take a look at that file size drop, 140. Okay, and you probably can't really tell that the quality's dropped a little bit on that, except for a bit of the colors are not as bright as they were before. Okay, but generally speaking, saving it like this is the best way if you're trying to upload it to the internet. Okay, really small file size. Just say I want to email this to somebody or post it on a forum or something. A smaller file size, much better for that. Next up, I'll show you how to use the rotate tool. Okay, and so firstly we need something to rotate. So let's select this motorbike. Press Control A to select everything in this picture. Alternatively, you can go to the selection option and choose Select All. Then right click and say Copy, or press Control C on your keyboard. And then we're going to make this canvas a bit bigger so we can paste a mirror imaged version of this motorbike next to it. So click on this horizontal expansion point and then press Control V or right click and say Paste. And you'll notice it's gone on the exact same spot as it was before and it's been selected, but really there's another image underneath it. Okay, so we're going to move that across until just on the edge, like so. Okay, now it's not a mirror image, so we're going to use a rotate tool, and we've got a few options. We can rotate at 90 degrees, which wouldn't look so good in this case, but we're going to go with flip horizontal. Okay, and now they are perfectly symmetrical. And now all we have to do is resize it so that there's no more white space. Almost there, try it one more time. And there we go, now we've got a mirror image using the rotation. Okay, there are other rotation options, but I find that these horizontal and vertical ones are the most useful, unless you're playing around with shapes and all that, which we could do later. Okay, so that's your resizing and your selection tools and your rotation. That's the basics of it. Save your work. You should have something looking like this. You don't have to use this motorbike picture. You can find any other picture as long as it's appropriate. And I just want you to create something like this. Alright, save your work, put it into your paint folder, and then you can move on.